Something strange happened after December 25, 2025, not in space, on Earth. For months, the object known as 3IATLAS dominated scientific discussion. Researchers openly debated its nature. Mainstream outlets ran bold headlines. Even respected astronomers entertained the possibility, however remote, that it might be artificial. And then, almost overnight, the conversation ended. No follow-up press conferences, no release of raw observational data, no escalating curiosity. Just a calm, uniform conclusion repeated everywhere at once. It's natural. Case closed. The question isn't why scientists changed their minds. The question is why the story didn't evolve. It collapsed. Exactly 1 week after Atlas's closest approach, something shifted. Independent analysts noticed a coordinated reversal, not the deletion of information, but the quiet removal of it from discussion. In intelligence and counter-information circles, this pattern has a name, a silence protocol, not censorship in the dramatic sense, no redacted papers, no missing websites, just omission. The unanswered questions stopped being asked. Official reports described Atlas as fragmenting, a weak, fragile rubble pile tearing itself apart under solar stress. But early observational data, captured before the narrative settled, painted a very different picture. The breakup was not chaotic. It was sectoral, directional, orderly. Atlas was shedding nearly 1.8 million kilograms of material every second, not explosively, but evenly. The mass loss didn't destabilize the object. It stabilized it. The spin rate leveled out, the brightness remained controlled, the structure held. That is not how failing comets behave, that is how systems manage stress. Some researchers stopped using the word disintegration. They used another word, deployment. Then came the jets. Comets vent gas from weak points on their surface. As the object rotates, those jets rotate with it. That behavior is well understood. But early telemetry from 3IATLAS reportedly showed something else entirely. The jets oscillated. They held orientation. Their thrust vectors remained fixed in space while the object rotated beneath them. In aerospace engineering, this phenomenon has a specific name: gimbaled thrust. It allows a craft to steer without turning its body. It does not occur naturally. Those plots circulated briefly among independent analysts. Then they vanished. During Atlas's rapid spin-up events, another anomaly appeared, this one harder to dismiss. ESA's JUICE mission reportedly detected synchronized radio bursts coinciding precisely with moments of acceleration. The frequency was unmistakable. 1.42 gigahertz. The hydrogen line. The most symbolically loaded frequency in radio astronomy. The one scientists have long assumed any technological civilization might use. The bursts were not random, not solar interference, not background noise. They were structured. Whether they were a signal or a side effect remains unknown, because after those detections, they were never mentioned again. No raw spectra released. No independent verification invited. No follow-up analysis published. Just silence. But the most conspicuous absence came from space itself. The Chandra X-ray Observatory was scheduled to observe 3IATLAS during its flyby. It was the ideal instrument, capable of detecting high-energy emissions, internal power sources, and non-thermal processes that ordinary telescopes cannot see. To this day, that data has not been released. No explanation for the delay, no calibration issue cited, no revised timeline, just a gap. And gaps are where stories hide. Because there is a fundamental problem no official explanation has resolved. 3IATLAS spun up rapidly. It shed mass along controlled vectors. It maintained jet orientation, and most critically, its emerald green glow intensified as it moved away from the sun. Diatomic carbon requires excitation, ultraviolet photons, energy input. But the farther Atlas traveled, the less solar energy it received. and yet its activity increased. The numbers do not balance. The physics does not close, unless there was another source. And that is where the story stopped, not because it was finished, but because it went somewhere no one was ready to follow. The silence did not mean the mystery was solved. It meant the questions had become inconvenient. And sometimes the most important signal is not what we hear, but what suddenly goes quiet. Before the flyby, the tone was different. Well-known scientists spoke openly about possibilities that had once been taboo. Avi Loeb publicly entertained the idea of artificial probes. Breakthrough Listen amplified anomalies instead of downplaying them. Major media outlets embraced uncertainty rather than rushing toward closure. Then December 24th passed, and everything changed. The same scientists were still speaking, the same instruments were still collecting data, but the language softened, speculation evaporated, access narrowed. Questions that had been openly debated days earlier were suddenly described as settled. The explanation was simple and repeated everywhere. New evidence clarified everything. Yet none of that evidence was shared. No single paper ended the debate. No decisive dataset was released. No discovery was announced. The certainty arrived without a cause, which raises a more uncomfortable question. Not what was concluded, but why the conclusion needed to arrive so quickly. Because if 3IATLAS were confirmed as artificial, it would not remain an astronomy problem for long. It would become a national security problem. First contact implications, global instability, competing claims over information control. Classification would be inevitable. Non-disclosure agreements, routine, silence, procedural. And the fastest way to prevent panic would not be to hide the object, but to reframe certainty around it. By January 2026, the situation reaches a point no press release can manage. 3IATLAS approaches Jupiter. This encounter is decisive. If Atlas is natural, a weak rubble pile riddled with fractures should suffer catastrophic tidal disruption under Jupiter's immense gravity. Fragmentation would be unavoidable. But if it is engineered, structurally reinforced, actively stabilized, then survival becomes possible. One flyby. Two interpretations. This moment is not symbolic, it is evidentiary, and whatever happens at Jupiter will speak louder than any official statement. Yet there is another implication, quieter and more disturbing. If 3IATLAS were artificial, its behavior tells us something deeply unsettling. It did not slow down. It did not adjust course toward Earth. It did not communicate. It did not linger. Earth was not the destination. It was a data point, a waypoint in a much larger survey. That kind of indifference is not reassuring. It is clinical. And when Atlas finally leaves the solar system, whether intact or fractured, it leaves something behind. Not proof, awareness. It revealed how information is managed, how quickly narratives can harden, how fragile transparency becomes under pressure. Whether 3IATLAS was a probe or a comet may never be definitively answered. But its true legacy is not in what it was. It's in how we reacted. More interstellar visitors are coming. That much is no longer in doubt. And when the next one arrives, we won't be watching with the same innocence. Because if the universe is being observed, then so are we. And next time we won't be caught blinking.